the United States was asked to name the global leaders in the world whom he respected, the first name he mentioned was again our Prime Minister of India. These are all matters that go beyond political parties. These are matters that India, all Indians should be proud of, because our Prime Minister is your Prime Minister on the other side of the House as well as ours. But let us also stress that it is not merely respect we are seeking. We, in this UPA government, are determined to safeguard the national interests of India effectively and of Indian people wherever they may be found. Which is why, as the President mentioned, we had, during the civil war in Libya, during the outbreak of hostilities that jeopardized the lives of 16,000 Indians there, we were able to effectively conduct Operation Safe Homecoming that brought home 16,000 of our fellow citizens safe from disaster. This is the kind of tangible focus on Indian interests that you are seeing day after day, week after week from the UPA government. Now, it is fitting that I conclude, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We have to acknowledge there are still huge problems that we need to overcome. This country has never, this government has never pretended that everything is perfect. We know there are challenges. The Prime Minister quite recently, in releasing a report on child malnutrition, even said there are matters of which we should be ashamed, and child malnutrition is one such matter. In our country, we cannot hide our heads in the sand. There are very serious problems of poverty that we need to overcome in our country. I earned some unfair notoriety a couple of years ago when some gentleman from the other side of the House, or with sympathies there, spoke of India being a superpower, and I said we can't speak of being a superpower when we are still super poor. This was not a popular thing to say, but it's true. We do have a large number of our people in whose service the UPA government is working. People we are determined to pull out of poverty, but we have been doing it. Every year of this government's existence, we have pulled out approximately 1% of our population from below the poverty line. Last year was 0.78%, but if you look at the Planning Commission figures, we are thinking of about 10 million people a year who have been no longer under the poverty line under our government. And this is it's slow. There is a lot more that needs to be done, but we are not China. China has grown at breakneck speed, but if you grow at breakneck speed, you also break a few necks. We don't do that in India. We bring our people along with us in the process of growth and development. And I want to stress that the UPA government is marching, if I can use computer language, on both the hardware of development and the software of development. The hardware, the roads, the airports, the railways, the infrastructural questions have not been neglected, as you know from the President's speech, but also the software of development, the human capital on which our nation rests, the human capital of our ordinary people, the Indian men and women in the poorest homes in this country. The objective of our government is and must remain to ensure that they get 3 square meals a day, that they are able to send their children to a good school, a good government school that teachers actually come to and teach, that they are able themselves to aspire to decent jobs that we train and equip them for, and that we try and create in our economy, so that they and their children can look to a better future. That is the purpose of government. And we must be conscious that we are building this country amongst a very, very youthful population. I mentioned the numbers earlier, 65% under 35, but I can tell you that our Prime Minister, when he addressed the newly elected Congress members of Parliament just 2.5 years ago in the Central Hall, said, never forget that we got a lot of support of young voters in this election. And he said, we must never stop respecting the impatience of the young. That is what the UPA government is conscious of, the impatience of the young. Our young have a right to be impatient. They have a right to want change. They have a right to want to see progress, and it is our job to provide that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We in the UPA have a sweeping vision for the future of this country, and we are on course to bring about these changes. This is a vision which we have not heard from the other side of the House, and I am not sure we will hear in the debates this afternoon, because it is a vision that sees a great adventure in this nation of bringing 1.2 billion people out into the forefront of the world of the 21st century, of doing so by connecting 600 million poor Indians, bringing them into the 21st century, connecting 600 million Indian villagers into the global village. These are major challenges, but these are worthwhile ambitions and worthwhile aspirations for a country like ours. And we, in the UPA, are doing this in an open society, in a democratic society where our policies will be challenged at the vote, at the ballot box, and also in the streets. We are trying to do this at the helm of a rich, diverse, and plural civilization, but one that, in our view, should be open to the contention of ideas and interests, that should not be afraid of the prowess or the products of the outside world, that should be determined to liberate and fulfill the creative energies of the Indian people. Such an India is the India that the President spoke of in her address yesterday. It is an India that has grown and will grow. It is an India that stands ready to assume its global responsibilities in the 21st century. And I call upon the House to vote for this motion. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.